I woke up on my 80th birthday to the sound of someone else's television blaring through the thin walls. The game show network from the sound of it. Mrs. Kowalski in 14B never could hear worth a damn, but she refused to wear her hearing aids because they made her feel old. I almost laughed at that, lying there in my narrow bed at Meadowbrook Assisted Living, but the laugh died somewhere in my chest. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Ellen and I used to talk about growing old together, sitting on our porch on Maple Street, watching the neighborhood kids ride their bikes, drinking sweet tea in the summer and hot cider in the fall. She'd garden. I'd finally read all those books I'd been collecting. We'd take that trip to see the Grand Canyon, maybe visit Veronica and the grandkids more often once I retired. Simple dreams, good dreams. Ellen got cancer instead, 5 years ago, this October. And Veronica had gotten busy with her own life. I pushed myself up slowly, my joints protesting like they always did first thing in the morning. Arthritis in both knees, a lower back that hadn't been right since I fell off a ladder trying to clean gutters in 2019. I was 80 years old today, and I felt every single year of it. The room was small but clean, generic landscape painting on the wall, mountains and a lake that could have been anywhere or nowhere, a small television I rarely watched, a dresser with a few photographs, Ellen on our wedding day in 1967, Veronica's high school graduation, my grandson Tyler at age 6 holding up a fish he'd caught. That photo was 12 years old now. Tyler was 18, away at some college I'd helped pay for, but had never been invited to visit. My phone sat on the bedside table. I picked it up, checked for messages, even though I already knew there wouldn't be any. The screen was blank except for a Facebook notification about someone I barely remembered from church having a birthday. Not my daughter, not my grandchildren, not anyone who actually mattered. 23 days I'd been here, 23 days since Veronica brought me to tour the facility, and somehow by the end of that afternoon, I'd been checked in. Everything had happened so fast. She'd had paperwork ready, talked about how I'd been forgetting things, how I'd left the stove on twice, how she'd found me confused in the garage at 2 a.m. looking for Ellen. That last part was true. I had done that. In that terrible first year after Ellen died, I'd woken up sometimes forgetting she was gone. But that was 4 years ago now. I was fine. I lived independently. I cooked my own meals, paid my own bills, drove to the grocery store and to church on Sundays. I wasn't some confused old man who needed to be warehoused with people waiting to die. But Veronica had been persuasive. She'd cried. She'd talked about how worried she was, how she couldn't sleep at night thinking about me falling or having a medical emergency with nobody there to help. She'd made it sound temporary, just until they could figure out a better long-term solution. Maybe hire a part-time nurse to check on me at home. Maybe look into one of those medical alert systems. I'd sign the papers because I trusted my daughter, because she was all I had left of Ellen, because I wanted to believe she had my best interests at heart. 3 weeks later, and she hadn't visited once, hadn't called, hadn't answered any of my calls to her. But she'd been busy, I'd discovered. Oh yes, very busy. Dennis Carr had visited me last Tuesday. Dennis and I went back 41 years, ever since he'd joined Patterson and Associates as a junior accountant fresh out of law school. We'd worked together for 15 years before he went into private practice. He'd handled Ellen's estate. He'd been at her funeral, one of the few people who genuinely mourned with me rather than just offering empty condolences. "Harold," he'd said, settling his considerable bulk into the visitor's chair in my room, "I'm not here to upset you, but I need to show you something." He'd pulled out his tablet and brought up bank statements. My bank statements. Accounts I'd set up as joint accounts with Veronica years ago, back when Ellen first got sick, just in case something happened to me and bills needed to be paid. $47,000 withdrawn over the past 6 months. Large purchases on credit cards, furniture, jewelry, a vacation to Cancun. The down payment on a condo in Scottsdale, Arizona, $85,000 pulled from my money market account. "She has power of attorney," Dennis said quietly. "You signed that over to her 2 years ago?" I remembered. Ellen had just died. I'd been a mess. Veronica had explained that it was just a precaution, just so she could help manage things if I got overwhelmed. I'd signed it because I was drowning in grief and couldn't imagine having to deal with financial paperwork on top of everything else. "Can she do this legally?" I'd asked, my voice shaking. "Legally? Yes, the POA gives her the authority. Morally?" Dennis's face had hardened. "Harold, She transferred $20,000 from Kayla's college fund into her personal checking account. That fund was set up specifically for your granddaughter's education. Kayla's a sophomore at Iowa State right now, and according to what I can see, Veronica told her the fund underperformed and there wasn't as much money as they'd thought. The betrayal had hit me like a physical blow. Kayla. Sweet Kayla, with Ellen's eyes and Ellen's love of books. I'd started that college fund when she was born, adding to it every birthday and Christmas. Ellen and I had talked about how proud we'd be to see her graduate without the burden of student loans so many young people carried now. And Veronica had stolen from her own daughter to buy herself a condo in Arizona. There's more, Dennis had said. She's been talking to a realtor about listing your house. I heard about it through, let's just say I have friends who keep me informed. Harold, she's planning to sell your home. The house on Maple Street. The house Ellen and I bought in 1972 for $23,000, scraping together every penny we had for the down payment. The house where we'd brought Veronica home from the hospital. The house where Ellen had planted roses every spring and made Christmas cookies every December and died in our bedroom with her hand in mine. That's when I'd known. This wasn't temporary. Veronica wasn't figuring things out. She dumped me here so she could liquidate my life and fund her own. I'd made my decision right then. Dennis, I'd said, I need you to do exactly what I tell you, and I need you to do it quietly. Over the next week, we'd systematically dismantled every piece of access Veronica had to my finances. We couldn't revoke the power of attorney without alerting her, but we could make it irrelevant. I closed the joint accounts and opened new ones in my name only at a different bank. I canceled every credit card that had her name attached. I called my investment broker and moved everything into new accounts she couldn't touch. The house was harder. I loved that house. But I couldn't let her have it, couldn't let her sell it and pocket the money while I rotted in here. Dennis found a buyer within 3 days, Brett and Lindsay Morrison, a young couple expecting their first baby. Brett was a high school teacher. Lindsay was a nurse. They reminded me of Ellen and me 48 years ago, full of hope and dreams about the life they'd build. I sold it to them for $40,000 under market value, with one condition. They had to close within 2 weeks, and they had to let me come by one last time to get some things. Brett drove me there himself last Saturday, a nice young man, patient with my slow walk up the driveway. The roses Ellen planted were blooming, pink and yellow and white. Someone had been mowing the lawn, probably the neighbor kid, Cody, who I'd paid $20 a week to do it before. I'd walk through those rooms one final time, the kitchen where Ellen taught Veronica to bake bread, the living room where we'd watched Veronica open Christmas presents and later watched our grandchildren do the same. The bedroom where Ellen and I had shared 43 years of marriage, of whispered conversations in the dark, of comfort and love and ordinary grace. I took 3 things: Ellen's Bible, the quilt her mother made for our wedding, and a shoebox of photographs. Everything else I left for Brett and Lindsay to make their own memories with. The money from the sale, combined with my liquidated investments and savings, came to just over $740,000. I paid Meadowbrook $63,000 for 18 months in a private room, the best they had with a garden view and my own bathroom. I set up a comfortable monthly income for myself from what remained. And the rest I put towards something that mattered. Dennis helped me research it. There was a missionary organization out of Cedar Rapids that built schools and medical clinics in Guatemala. They'd been doing it for 30 years, working in remote mountain villages where children had to walk 3 hours each way just to attend classes in crumbling buildings with no books, no supplies, nothing. The medical clinics served people who'd never seen a doctor in their lives. I gave them $500,000. In Ellen's name, they were going to build a school and a clinic in a village called San Miguel. They sent me drawings, plans. The school would serve 200 children. The clinic would provide basic health care to a region of 3,000 people who currently had nothing. Ellen would have loved that. She'd always talked about doing more, giving more, serving more. We'd sponsored children through Christian organizations for years, sent money to missionaries, donated to the church building fund. But this was bigger. This was real. This was a legacy that would matter long after I was gone. I'd kept enough to live on comfortably for the rest of my life, however long that might be. I wasn't being foolish. But I also wasn't going to let Veronica's greed destroy what Ellen and I had built together. Dennis finished all the paperwork yesterday. Everything was locked tight. Veronica couldn't touch a penny. I hadn't told her yet. I'd been waiting, letting her think she still had control, letting her make whatever plans she was making. I wanted to see her face when she found out. Was that unchristian of me? Probably. Ellen would have said vengeance belongs to the Lord, not to us. But I wasn't looking for vengeance. I was looking for justice. There's a difference. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. "Mr. Patterson? Breakfast time." Tracy, one of the aides. A nice girl studying to be a dental hygienist. She always smiled, always asked about my day. She probably made $12 an hour to empty bedpans and help people like me remember to take their pills. "Thank you, Tracy. I'll be right there." "Oh, and Mr. Patterson, happy birthday. I brought you something." She came in carrying a small cupcake with a single candle, chocolate with vanilla frosting. Her eyes were kind. "You didn't have to do that," I said, and my voice came out rougher than I intended. "I know. But everybody should have a birthday cupcake. Make a wish." I looked at that candle, at this young woman who barely knew me, but had taken the time to bring me something sweet on my 80th birthday, and I felt something crack open in my chest. Veronica hadn't called, Tyler hadn't called, Kayla hadn't called, but Tracy, who owed me nothing, had brought me a cupcake. I blew out the candle. "What did you wish for?" Tracy asked. I almost said nothing, but then I thought about Ellen, about the faith she'd carried so lightly and so deeply, about how she'd always believed in second chances and new beginnings, even when I couldn't see them. "I wished for the courage to do what's right," I said. "Even when it's hard." Tracy smiled. "That's a good wish, Mr. Patterson. That's a really good wish." After breakfast, rubbery eggs and toast that tasted like cardboard, but I ate it anyway, I went to the common room. The morning news was playing on the television, something about a storm system moving through the Midwest. A few other residents sat scattered in the chairs, some dozing, some staring at nothing in particular. My phone buzzed. Finally. But it wasn't Veronica. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Patterson, this is Brett Morrison. Just wanted to let you know we're moved in and we love the house. Found something interesting when we were cleaning out the garage. There's a box labeled V's Baby Things up on a shelf. Do you want us to save it for you?" Veronica's baby things, her first shoes. The blanket she'd been wrapped in when we brought her home from Mercy Hospital. A lock of her hair from her first haircut. Ellen had saved everything. Couldn't bear to throw any of it away. I started to text back, "Throw it out," my fingers actually forming the letters. But I stopped. Sat there looking at those words on the screen. That box represented who Veronica had been before she became who she was now. A baby I'd held in my arms. A little girl who'd called me daddy and sat on my lap while I read her stories. A teenager who'd cried on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart. When had we lost that? When had she stopped being my little girl and become this stranger who'd abandon me and steal from her own daughter? I deleted the text and started over. "Yes, please save it. Thank you." The phone rang 10 minutes later. Not Brett. Veronica. I stared at her name on the screen, my heart pounding. This was it. She'd found out. She knew. I answered. "Hello, Veronica. What the hell did you do?" Her voice was shaking with rage. "Dad, what the hell did you do?" "I protected myself," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my hands were trembling. Something I should have done 3 weeks ago. "Protected yourself? You sold the house? You canceled everything?" "Dad, I have bills to pay. I have a life." I closed my eyes. Even now, even caught red-handed, she was making this about her inconvenience, not about what she'd done, not about abandoning me here on my 80th birthday, not about stealing from Kayla's college fund. "Yes," I said, "you do have a life. One you've been funding with my money while I sit here wondering if my own daughter remembers I exist." Silence on the other end. Then, "I was going to visit. I've been busy, Dad. You know how it is with work and everything. You went to Cancun." Another silence, longer this time. "You bought a condo in Scottsdale. You spent $20,000 from Kayla's college fund." My voice was rising now, months of hurt and betrayal pushing through. "You told her the fund underperformed. You lied to your own daughter so you could buy yourself a vacation property." "Who told you that? Dennis?" "God, Dad, Dennis has been trying to turn you against me for years. Dennis showed me bank statements. Numbers don't lie, Veronica. And I was an accountant for 47 years. I know exactly what I'm looking at." I could hear her breathing on the other end, fast and shallow. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, softer, the voice she used to use when she wanted something as a little girl. "Daddy, please, I made some mistakes, okay? I shouldn't have used Kayla's money. I'll pay it back. But you can't just cut me off like this. That house, that's my inheritance. You can't just sell it to strangers." "Your inheritance?" The word tasted bitter. "Veronica, you're 53 years old. I'm 80. You dumped me in a nursing home and disappeared. What exactly have you done to deserve an inheritance?" "I'm your daughter. I took care of you after Mom died. You visited twice in the first year." "Twice? Then you stopped coming at all until you decided I needed to be locked away so you could raid my accounts." "That's not... Dad, you're not being fair. I have my own problems. The divorce cost me everything and Craig won't pay child support." "Craig has been paying child support. I know because his lawyer called me 6 months ago asking about Kayla's college expenses. You told him I was covering it all." I heard her sharp intake of breath. Got you, I thought. But I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired and old and heartbroken. "I'm coming over there," she said. "We're going to talk about this face to face. I'm not changing my mind. We'll see about that." She hung up. I sat there in the common room, surrounded by strangers and the smell of industrial cleaner, and I felt something I hadn't let myself feel in 5 years. Completely, utterly alone. Ellen would know what to do. Ellen would have the right words, the right balance of firmness and grace. But Ellen was gone, and I was just a broken old man who'd driven away the only family he had left. Had I, though? Or had Veronica driven herself away years ago, and I'd just been too desperate for connection to see it? Tracy found me an hour later, still sitting in the same chair. "Mr. Patterson, you okay? You missed lunch?" "I'm not hungry." She sat down next to me, this young woman who had no reason to care. "Want to talk about it?" I surprised myself by saying yes. I told her everything, not the dollar amounts, that seemed crass, but the situation. My daughter dropping me here, the silence, discovering what she'd done, protecting myself. Tracy listened without interrupting, her face thoughtful. "My grandma went through something similar," she finally said. "Not exactly the same, but close. Her son put her in a home and tried to sell her house. She was so angry, Mr. Patterson, so hurt. You know what she did?" "What?" "She forgave him anyway, not because he deserved it, because carrying all that anger was killing her faster than old age ever could." Tracy looked at me with those young, clear eyes. "I'm not saying what your daughter did is okay. It's not. It's terrible. But I see a lot of people here who spend their last years angry at family. And Mr. Patterson, it just makes them miserable. The family doesn't care. They're off living their lives. The only person that anger hurts is the one carrying it." I wanted to argue, to explain that this was different, that I had every right to be angry, that justice mattered. But something in her words found the crack in my armor. Ellen used to say the same thing. She'd had a sister who'd stolen from their mother, who'd lied and manipulated and caused terrible hurt, and Ellen had forgiven her. Not because the sister apologized, she never did, but because Ellen refused to let bitterness poison her soul. "I don't know if I can," I admitted. "You don't have to decide right now," Tracy said gently. "Just don't close the door completely, that's all I'm saying." Veronica arrived at 4 o'clock. I heard her before I saw her, sharp heels clicking down the hallway, her voice demanding to know which room was Harold Patterson's. She sounded like a storm rolling in, and I braced myself. She swept into my room wearing designer clothes I'd probably paid for, her hair perfectly styled, her makeup immaculate. She looked like success. She looked like someone who had everything figured out. She looked nothing like the little girl who used to bring me dandelions from the yard and call them flowers. "Dad." She didn't hug me, didn't sit down, just stood there with her arms crossed. "We need to fix this." "There's nothing to fix, Veronica. What's done is done. You sold my house that I bought, that I paid for, that your mother and I made into a home. Semantics. That house was supposed to be mine someday. You had no right." "I had every right. It was my property." Her face flushed red. "Fine, the house is gone. But the rest of it, Dad, you have to give me back access to the accounts. I have the condo payment due next week. I have car payments. I have bills. Then I suggest you get a job." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "I have a job. Part-time receptionist work 3 days a week doesn't cover a luxury condo in Scottsdale, Veronica. You've been living off my money, and that's over. You're doing this to punish me." "No." I stood up, my knees protesting, but I needed to be on my feet for this. I'm doing this to protect myself and to make sure your mother's and my life's work actually means something. I gave $500,000 to build a school and a medical clinic in Guatemala in your mother's name. That money is going to educate children and provide health care to people who have nothing. That's what it's for, not for condos and vacations and jewelry. Veronica's mouth fell open. $500,000? To strangers? Are you insane? Dad, that's our money. It was my money, and I chose to use it for something that matters. I'm your daughter. I matter. Kayla and Tyler matter. Then where have you been? The question came out louder than I intended, echoing in the small room. Where were you on my birthday, Veronica? Where were you for the past 3 weeks? Where were you when I needed to know that I wasn't just some problem to be solved, some burden to be warehoused and forgotten? Her face changed. For just a moment, I saw something that might have been shame, but it hardened again almost immediately. I was dealing with my own life. I can't just drop everything because you need attention. I needed my daughter. One phone call. One visit. Some sign that I still mattered to you as something other than a bank account. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Veronica. Your mother dying at 67 wasn't fair. You abandoning me here wasn't fair. But we deal with what is, not what we wish things were. She grabbed her purse, her hands shaking. You're going to regret this. When you're old and sick and need help, don't come crying to me. I'm already old, Veronica, and I'm already here, and you've already made it clear where I stand with you. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. When she looked back at me, her eyes were wet. I loved you, she said. I loved you and Mom, and you always made me feel like I wasn't good enough. Nothing I did was ever right. Mom was always so perfect, so giving, so saintly, and I was just not. You're doing this because you've always loved her more than you loved me. The accusation hit me like a freight train, because somewhere, buried under all the anger and hurt and betrayal, there was a grain of truth in it. Ellen had been easier to love. She'd been gentle and kind and patient. Veronica had been difficult from the start, colicky as a baby, defiant as a teenager, dramatic as an adult. We'd clashed constantly. I'd been too hard on her, I knew that now, too rigid. Too much the stern father who expected excellence and gave criticism more easily than praise. But I had loved her. I still loved her, even now. Your mother was not perfect, I said quietly. She struggled, she doubted, she made mistakes, but she tried every day to be better, to do better. And Veronica, I failed you in a lot of ways. I wasn't the father I should have been. I was too hard on you, too critical, I know that, but I loved you. I still love you. That's why this hurts so much. She wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara. You have a funny way of showing love. So do you. We stood there, father and daughter, with 40 years of wounds between us and no idea how to bridge the gap. The money's gone, I said. I'm not changing that. But Veronica, you're still my daughter. If you want to actually be part of my life, not my bank account, my life, the door is open. But it has to be real. No more lies. No more using me. She shook her head slowly. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if you can either. Then I guess we're both going to have to figure out if we want to try. She left without another word. I sank back into my chair, exhausted. My 80th birthday. Happy birthday to me. But something had shifted. The anger was still there, but it wasn't consuming me anymore. I'd stood up for myself. I'd told the truth. I'd drawn boundaries. And I'd left the door open for something different, even if I had no idea if Veronica would ever walk through it. That night I opened Ellen's Bible. It fell open to a page she'd marked with a pressed flower. I didn't know from where or when. The passage was from Ephesians. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. Ellen had underlined, just as in Christ God forgave you. Not after we deserve it, not after we've earned it. Just as we've been forgiven, freely, completely, without conditions. I wasn't there yet. I couldn't just pretend the hurt didn't exist. Couldn't hand Veronica back the keys to my life and trust her not to destroy me. But maybe forgiveness didn't mean letting someone keep hurting you. Maybe it meant releasing the poison of hatred while still maintaining healthy boundaries. Maybe it meant being willing to believe people could change, even when you'd seen no evidence of it yet. I didn't know. I was just an 80-year-old man in a nursing home, trying to figure out how to live the faith I'd claimed to believe for 6 decades. 3 months later, Brett and Lindsay sent me photos of their nursery. They'd painted it yellow with a border of ducks, the room that used to be Veronica's room. A new generation, a new beginning. Kayla called me 2 weeks after the confrontation with Veronica. She'd found out everything. Her mother had apparently had a breakdown and confessed it all. Kayla was furious, heartbroken, ashamed. "I'm so sorry, Grandpa," she said, crying. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what she was doing. I know, sweetheart, this isn't your fault. Can I come see you? I would love that." She visited the next weekend. We talked for hours. I told her about the school in Guatemala, showed her the pictures and plans. Her eyes lit up. That's amazing, Grandpa. Grandma would have loved that." "I know she would have." Kayla started visiting regularly, once a week, sometimes twice. She'd bring her textbooks and study in my room, occasionally asking me questions about her accounting classes. It turned out she'd chosen business as her major, was thinking about going into nonprofit work. "I want to do something that matters," she said. "Like what you did." Tyler came once, awkward and uncomfortable, clearly sent by his mother. We had a stilted conversation about his engineering program. He left after 20 minutes, but he came back 3 weeks later on his own, and that visit was better. Veronica didn't come. I didn't expect her to. But 6 months after my 80th birthday, I got a letter. Handwritten, not typed. Her handwriting, the same looping script I'd seen on Mother's Day cards and Christmas lists for 50 years. "Dad, I've been going to therapy. My counselor suggested I write this even if I never send it, but I think you deserve to actually receive it. You were right about everything. I was using you. I was lying to myself about why I put you in Meadowbrook, lying about needing the money, lying about caring for you after Mom died. The truth is, I was jealous of the attention you gave her, even after she was gone. I was angry that you loved her so openly and loved me so conditionally. Or at least, that's how it felt. And I was terrified of ending up alone like you, so I grabbed onto money like it could protect me from that. It couldn't. I'm more alone now than I've ever been. Kayla barely speaks to me. Tyler thinks I'm pathetic, and I don't blame them. I sold the condo. I'm paying back Kayla's college fund from my share of what's left. I got a full-time job as an office manager. Nothing glamorous, but it's honest work and it's mine. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't know if I can forgive myself, but I wanted you to know that I see what I did. I see who I became, and I'm trying to be better. Your daughter, Veronica. I read that letter 5 times, then I called her. "Hello?" Her voice was tentative, fragile. "I got your letter." Silence. "Thank you for writing it," I said. That took courage. "Dad, I'm not ready to forget what happened. But Veronica, I'm willing to start over. Slowly, if you are." I heard her breath catch. "Really? Really, come visit me next Sunday. Let's just talk, like 2 people trying to figure out how to be a family again." She came. We talked. It was hard and awkward and sometimes painful, but it was real. She came again the next week, and the next. We're not fixed. I don't know if we ever will be. The wounds are too deep, the pattern's too old, but we're trying, and some days that feels like enough. The school in Guatemala opened last month. They sent me pictures of the dedication ceremony, children in uniforms, standing in front of a building with a sign that read Escuela Ellen Patterson, Ellen's school, her legacy, our legacy. I keep that photo on my dresser next to the one of Ellen on our wedding day. I'm 80 years old. I live in a nursing home. My body is failing bit by bit, but I'm not forgotten. I'm not abandoned. I'm not just waiting to die. I'm a man who stood up for himself when it mattered, who chose to invest in something eternal instead of something temporary, who left the door open for redemption, even when he had every right to slam it shut. Some days Veronica and I talk about the past. Some days we just sit together and watch the garden outside my window, where Tracy helped me plant roses last spring, pink and yellow and white, just like Ellen used to grow. The roses bloom every year, faithful and beautiful, whether anyone notices them or not. I think there's a lesson in that, about grace, about second chances, about things that grow even in unlikely soil. I'm still learning it, but I have time. However much time I have left, I plan to spend it learning to forgive the way I've been forgiven, imperfectly, haltingly, but genuinely. It's what Ellen would have wanted. It's what I should have been doing all along.